Hello, everybody. Well, welcome to another episode of Call Me Mr. Broadstreet. I have as my very special guest today, Luca Perasi. Welcome to the show, Luca. Of course, we'll get to introductions, but two highly recommended books that I have is the Paul McCartney recording sessions, of course, 1969 to 2013. Another more recent title that I enjoy having as part of my library, Paul McCartney, Music as Ideas, The Story Behind the Songs, Volume 1 from 1970 to 1989. There are others I have yet to get, but Luca, I just want to say welcome on the show, and feel free to introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Thanks a lot, Edward. It's a pleasure talking with you and being here. So, whatever you want to ask me about my activity as an author, I'm here to answer, and I'm sure it would be interesting for all the people who listen to your shows, and so yeah, let's dive in
Certainly.
into the topics, and I'm here.
All right,
Thanks
all right.
again for the invitation.
No, and thank you for being on. Like I said, well, let's go ahead and spin it on, as Paul might say. All right, here we go. Well, first, more basic question, I guess. How did you kind of first become a fan of Paul and the Beatles for for folks that are out there?
Well, I think for people who follow me since quite a while, it's quite well known, but it's worth to repeat it. I mean, I was introduced to well, first to the Beatles word because of my parents, obviously, because well, my father was born in 1944, so it's the same uh, generation of Paul McCartney. And so I remember in the summer of 1982, uh, they bought just a little cassette of the Beatles 1962, 66, the Red compilation. And so that was my basic introduction to the Beatles, which I knew already uh, randomly. But when it's basically your parents' music, you don't want to admit you like it. So I resisted a bit at first, although I liked the songs, I like the rhythm, I like a lot of things. And then I became a fan of Michael Jackson, and I remember Paul basically from Ebony and Ivory a year before. And then I became a fan of Michael Jackson, as many of people were at the time.
Hmm.
I was very young. I mean, I was 13, 14, so it was quite natural to fall in love with Michael Jackson at the time. And so I got Thriller, and then I saw the video of Say Say Say, and after a while, I asked my mother to grab this record, and she came back with the album Pipes of Peace,
Hmm.
and that's what was uh, a delusion on the one side because I was expecting a Michael Jackson album. Then I browsed through it and saw that there were two tracks with Michael. But I got through the album and I liked it a lot, and so that's how it started. And from then on, it was uh, uh, it was impossible to escape the fate of being a fan of Paul McCartney. That's it.
That is a good one. We'd be remiss, of course, without remembering Quincy Jones. Obviously, as we're taping this, at least today, we
Yeah,
heard about the news, which is a
yeah,
very major loss in the music industry and the overall entertainment industry. With has worked with Michael Jackson, of course, over Off the
yeah,
Wall, Thriller, and Bad, and of course, many
yeah.
other compositions and collaborations. It certainly will be missed. But yeah, I just wanted to then kind of transition over to maybe another question you've been asked quite often. But then okay, you become a fan. You're a fan of the music, and myself, I can relate to that. Say, Broad Street, kind of ebony and ivory period. Myself, being a fellow, what we would call Gen X in America. So what kind of inspired you to first now start writing about them? Okay, you're a fan, you start collecting the stuff, I assume, but what kind of inspired you to go, okay, I want to start writing about this? What kicked
Yeah.
that off?
Well, since your channel is called Call Me Mr. Broadstreet, I got to disclose that the first album that I bought on my own, although the money were the money of my parents, was Broad Street, because at the time I yeah, I already became a fan, and so Broad Street came out in October 1984. And so I was able to go into a shop and being conscious of buying a Paul McCartney record. And then, yeah, I have started collecting all the albums, although I didn't have such a clear idea of how many they were, because there was no internet at the time. So I just went into shops and just pick up the one that inspired me the most because of the cover, and
Mhm,
that's it. And then I was always very fascinated by history, and so well, I wanted to know what was behind the curtains, was what was behind an album. So I started on my own. I think in the summer of 1986. So I was 16 to just um, take notes and I just uh, had my my pencil and a scrapbook and just write down something I thought at the time about the various albums I got. And so I started to collect and put together my ideas about the songs, the albums. I tried to reproduce the musicians, the booklets that I was seeing. And so, yeah, I mean, then I tried again when I was 19 to put together something more similar to a book, and then that recording session grew up step by step for my own pleasure, basically. At,
mhm.
at the time, it was something that I wanted to do just to keep track of all the information I was gathering. You know, so uh, at some point I thought, well, basically we are missing a book on Paul McCartney's songs. So instead of waiting, I'm just doing it myself. That was it.
That's good, and it leads me. Well, another question I don't kind of have pre-written, but now kind of branching off of that. So you're getting that first album, Broad Street. I'm a little partial to that myself, for obvious reasons. But describe that to me, that feeling. You're getting that with your own money, by the way. And yes, this is all pre-internet, as we're both very similar in age. What was that feeling like? You have that first album in your hand with your own money. Describe a little bit of that.
Well, I mean, it was strange because it was a combination. It's a combination of original songs and Beatles songs. But at the time, I didn't have the whole Beatles catalog.
Mhm,
So I was exposed to here, there, and everywhere, or for no one without knowing the original. So I understood there were Beatles songs, but I didn't know the original version. And I think I have bought Revolver, I think, I don't know, maybe 6 months later.
mhm,
And so it was a strange kind of effect to go back to the original and say, well, I prefer the Paul's version maybe at the time because it was, the first you've been exposed to, and so yeah, maybe a little bit more modern in sounds and stuff. So yeah, it was a well, I have to tell you that Broad Street and especially Normal Lonely Nights were very popular in Italy at the time, and I think that Normal Lonely Nights was uh, used as a on the ending titles of a Sunday TV program, very popular TV program in Italy, for like 1 or 2 months, something like that. So yeah, Paul at the time was very popular in Italy, very successful. So it was a great feeling to have a new album, and you got your new album, and you talk about it with your friends at school, your schoolmates, and so um, I remember, if I'm not wrong, when I got into the CD, and was the Christmas of 1986. Um, Probably that was my first CD as well.
Oh, well, and was that also Broad Street, or was that another? That
Broad
was
Street, yeah.
Broad Street. Oh, okay,
I think I'm
excellent.
I'm I'm not sure, but I think so. And the second, I think it was Tug of War.
Mhm,
So yeah, I mean, once I had a CD, and I have also bought Broad Street on cassette, because I noticed that the length of the pieces was different, and
mhm,
so I said, well, let me have a listen here. And so the cassette replaced the LP quite soon, because of the fact that the versions of the songs were more complete. And so I lent this cassette to a schoolmate of mine, because I wanted, his opinion and stuff like that. I mean, I remember he told me something like, well, it's spectacularly recorded. I remember he made a remark about the quality of the recording. And so yeah, it's a good feeling. Although it was a bit strange, because being a fan of Paul McCartney at 15, 16 years old, it was different than being a fan of bands like Duran Duran, or uh, anyone else that was uh, very popular
mhm.
between among young people. So it always been a little bit strange, but you know, I made my way through it, and yeah, never been uncertain about it.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, no, I know that feeling well. Believe me, that's some great bands as well out there, right? Well, I wanted to kind of focus in on that. Then it's kind of leading me into sort of one of the next questions. So, is there kind of a favorite time period of Paul's career that you'd like to write about versus maybe other time periods, or does that really make a difference when you're composing, so writing something?
No, I mean, each period of Paul's career has got something interesting. That's the truth.
Hmm.
So if you ask me which is the quality of the music I prefer, speaking about Paul McCartney as a solo artist, probably is the 70s.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of songs, a lot of albums. Then things changed, but I find that his 80s were interesting as well, although not easy for
Hmm.
him for a number of reasons. Then we got the 90s with things like Flaming Pie. I mean, uh, he has um, led his career in a very wise way. So there's always something interesting. Also the experimental stuff, the fireman stuff, and the classical things. Although Paul is a pop composer, um, I was able to analyze a bit more in depth his compositions for classical music, or symphonic music, or whatever we want to call this. And yeah, it's an extraordinary output. So I'm not that partial to one period
Mhm.
or another. But as a quality, definitely I'm into the 70s. Then
Mhm.
after a while, I've written a lot about the 70s. So
Mhm.
then it comes a time when you have to, write about other periods, and it's refreshing, and so you can discover a lot of uh, things that seem new, although you have listened to those songs for decades. There's always
Yeah.
something new to discover.
No,
Yeah.
100%. And actually, that kind of leads into my next question about keeping your objectivity when writing about Paul, since I know we all have our favorite periods, our favorite time, time periods or things that we focus on. So how do you kind of, when you're writing about that, you're writing about maybe a less favorite period. How do you tend to try to keep, as objective as possible when presenting the career?
Oh, I mean, the way I build my books is basically historical. So I like to have an historical approach, and that's what saves me to you know to be bored. I mean, when I gather information about a specific song, a specific album or period, well, it doesn't matter to me if I like this or not, or maybe I like less this particular album compared to another one. I want to gather information and give information to to the readers, and that's my goal. So I, I don't have a problem with it. Although I know that this music could be not my favorite, no problem at all. I like to collect information. I like to go into the details of the musicians or the instrumentation or the structure of the song, this kind of thing. So no problem at all. I mean, I'm open to discover um, everything and anything, regardless of my tastes. I mean, that's it.
Excellent. No, and certainly look, we're the better for it. We're the richer for it. Having the session musicians, I love reading through or having that, and having that information at my fingertips, even though it's online. There's something different about having it in a book, in my view. And when you start researching, so do you prefer really starting more online or kind of through physical books, articles, etc.? I know it's a little bit different from when we may have started as fans back years ago versus now with everything online. How do you prefer to kind of start or to build on what you've already done?
Well, there's no established pattern. I mean, obviously these days online research is key, and it's time consuming because it's not enough to just put a couple of keywords on Google or whatever, um, and see what comes up. Because most of the time, the best discoveries come by accident. I mean, you're searching something about one song or one album, and then all of a sudden something pops up, and it's related to another story, another song. I don't know why, but it's the way it works. So you got to be very open, and maybe interrupting your research on that specific song to collect that information that popped up
Mhm.
about another song. And so, yeah, then that's obviously the books are still important. Although when it comes to the 70s, there's a lot of information also in printed form.
Mhm.
And when it comes to the more recent periods, then there's not that so much.
Mhm.
So another important source is interviews that that I have done with musicians or producers or collaborators and stuff, and that adds obviously a different perspective and depth to the work.
Oh, of course, I really appreciate. I mean, all those interviews you've done with members of Wings and of course producers and everything, and that kind of leads me a little bit into one of my next questions. So, when you're reading something as a, an author yourself, kind of who are some of your favorite Beatles authors you like to kind of read through, or obviously using as part of your research? What's some of your favorites that you like to that you admire that influenced you?
Well, I'm not sure I got you. Can you?
Yeah. So, like, who are some of your general favorite authors
Oh yeah.
out there on Beatles or Paul books?
Well, authors. I mean, well, recently we had a McCartney Legacy book, which has opened a new word. Let me say, because of the details that they were able to discover, and it proved that McCartney probably is the well, the most popular subject on which you can write a book.
Mhm,
And there's other books coming, and I see a lot of literature popping up these days. Well, as Mark Lewis, and obviously has been a key uh, author,
mhm,
and it was well, he was a kind of inspiration because when it comes to the Beatles recording sessions, I mean, if you like this kind of book, that means something. That means that you really like the historical research. So, uh, you know, going back to this book of Mr. Lewis, and I think that was really a key one for me. I didn't
mhm,
I didn't think necessarily at the time, well, I want to uh, write a book like this, but yeah, probably over time and over the years, I always thought about Lewis as a model,
mhm,
and so I would say this kind of to uh, come to mind. Then there's other authors in years that I'm not sure I can remember um, uh, every one of them. John Blaney wrote very interesting and well done books, for example.
mhm,
So I mean, uh, since I was 15, I think I've started to collect uh, Beatles and McCartney books in original language, mostly because they were the only ones available, and because I was able to read English even
mhm,
at a young age. So that was my formation, uh, even when I was young. In Italian, I think we didn't have such a large production on the subject.
mhm,
It was been very, very difficult. You can find a lot of things on the Beatles, but when it comes to McCartney as a solo artist in the 80s, early 90s, well, we all know the feeling of having a book which is called, I don't know, Paul McCartney, blah, blah, blah. And then there's 300 pages and 280 were on the Beatles period, and then 20 on the solo career. And if you're not a first generation fan as myself, I mean, I was born in late 69.
mhm,
So obviously you are interested in McCartney as a solo artist as well. And so
mhm,
now we have reached the time when we can talk about McCartney as a solo artist finally,
Yes.
in full.
Of course, no, and that helps with the perspective, and I think especially for us fans that came, after that, myself, being born in the mid '70s, so yeah, very very much that same similar time period. And going back to something, it's that you brought up. So, like when you get these new items of information, or you find like a surprise, or let's say you find a song and then another song or album that's described inside of it, as you said, like a detour. Uh, what are some of those detours that have kind of surprised you in general? Like something you go, "Oh, wait a minute, I didn't realize about this or that it would go in this direction."
Oh well, there's a lot of things. Maybe a piece of lyric that you never connected to a specific fact, or you wasn't aware that the lyric was about this specific thing. When it comes to the music, I mean that it's a different word, because it requires you to listen to something that you know perfectly, as or you think you know perfectly, and putting yourself in the shoes of, let me say, a critic. I don't like this word in particular, but you got to listen to the song, uh, trying to break it down in its parts, and trying to be specific, and make it comprehensible, understandable to people, because I don't want my books or my research to be, too difficult. It must be something that uh, everyone could understand, but it's also nice to have some insight on the harmony, on the chords, on the melody, because it's something that can push people to go in more in depth when it comes to music. Although you're not a musician, maybe it can give you something to reflect, and maybe it could be something that interests you, to the point that you maybe are interested to pick up an instrument and learn playing. And that's what basically happened also, although with me, because well, I can play a bit of instrument, a bit of guitar, a bit of bass, a bit of piano, and that's because of Paul, and that's because of what I've read, you know so when you read something that you don't perfectly know,
Mhm.
it, 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 it it's not something that blocks you. It must be something that pushes you forward to discover these things. Otherwise, if you only read something that you already know, well, it's a limitation. I think it's good you know to read something you don't perfectly know. And
Mhm.
that's yeah, that's the role of being curious about things. So that's what I think, a book that's what I think is the role of a book, I think.
Yeah, yeah, no, well, definitely. Even with when I was reading through this, first volume, and again rereading through it, as I've got my bookmark page, the 1984 entry in this book here, the recording sessions. The song "Kiss Me Now," later overdubbed with an orchestra in 2013. I had no idea about that. Or, like you said, basically "No More Lonely Nights," laying out the sources, laying out the instrumentation, laying out the who played on the record. It's a valuable resource, and like I said, I definitely appreciate having that as a fan, looking at that and going through and sort of with these books. I know you've got quite a bit quite a bit going on. How long from start to finish does it sometimes take to complete a book or project? I'm sure it's not a very linear process, but from concept to, let's say, you're nearly done or just about done.
It's a it's hard to tell because you can interrupt your work, you can do other projects and stuff. Well, it depends from the book we are talking about. I mean, let's say let's take music as ideas because it's a most recent, and it's a reference book. So
Yes.
it's almost 600 pages, and it's a big book. So I think, well, it leans a bit on the material I had from recording sessions,
Hmm.
but it was rewritten, and there was a lot of additions, a lot of information that popped up afterwards, and so I don't know, maybe uh, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, I don't know. It's a big thing. I can't count the
Hmm.
hours I'm spending on such a project, and so it depends. I mean, if you want to be fully focused on one volume, uh, I prefer to work on different projects at the same time.
Hmm.
Then at some point you have to stop, and when you get to close a book, for example, you got to stop other things and say, okay, now let's close this project. But I like to also to work on different things because it I think it allows you um, to be more fresh
Hmm.
when it comes to writing. Maybe you write this book, then at some point you got bored, then you need to to focus your attention maybe on something else, and then go back to it with a different mind, a different approach. I think it helps. So it's difficult to say uh, in years or months how much it takes because of that, because my process could be um, could be involving other books as well at the same time. But it takes time.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I imagine this wouldn't just be something over a weekend. No, no, never. I couldn't be. Yeah.
No, I mean it's a kind of thing that you gotta have a passion for this kind of things, because it's not inspiration that you can have writing a song. Well,
Mhm.
you can write a song over a couple of hours if you're very good.
Yes.
But because the inspiration and then recording, it's very important to to keep it fresh. When it comes to a reference book, it's a completely different kind of work. So it
Mhm.
takes time, it takes rewriting, it takes oh, I got it wrong. There's a lot of little things to be done, although um, there's other people involved, and I'm not taking care of all the aspects of the layout and stuff. This is done by other people, but then maybe you go through the book and uh, discover little things to be modified, numbers of the songs. There's a lot of stuff that is not strictly related to the writing, but to the organization. That's
Mhm.
uh, that's the most one of the most important things is to have a framework in mind. Otherwise, it would be a mess. So I spend quite a lot of my time organizing the book and having the list of songs on Excel files, for
Mhm.
example, before starting.
Okay.
Otherwise, it you mess this up, and it takes much more time
Yeah.
to do
No.
it.
That's a good idea. Yeah, to have it. You have it filtered so you know which song, which album, which
Yeah.
time period we're looking at. So going with that. So you've written so much about the different songs and different albums. What are some that you feel that might be some underrated Paul albums or songs, for instance, that you go, oh, I wish more people knew about this song or this album?
Uh, well, there's a lot. There's a
Mhm.
lot, and there's a couple I have in mind, and I have already started writing, but I can't disclose. But it would be something related to the 80s, because well, we were talking about the different periods in Paul's career.
Mhm.
So the 80s, I think it's time to go in depth and writing and discovering more about the 80s, and not necessarily about his most successful albums.
Mhm.
So let me close like this, but people will know quite soon what I'm talking about.
Excellent. We look forward to that, and just some general thoughts on. I know other shows have covered this. Of course, Two Legs with Andy and Tom, for instance. I've gotten to speak with them about this both on formal interviews, of course, in private and everything. What are some thoughts on the archive collection and where you might see that going? Because that's something I'm hoping for Broadstreet Press to play stuff like that.
Mhm.
What are some of your thoughts on it?
Well, I hope they will continue. I don't have any information. We don't have any information.
Of course.
Probably they have switched a bit to a different format, as Band on the Run and One and Clapping uh, showed
Mhm.
recently. But I don't think it's this means that the archive collection is over.
Mhm.
Now the situation we have is kind of strange, because uh, London Town Air and Back to the Egg are not part of the archive collection, and they are uh, Wings, two Wings albums that we miss
Yes,
from the 70s. So if we look at the collection, it's not complete,
of
you
course.
know. But we have in mind the collection as being as covering every album. We don't know if it's the case or if it was intended to cover just some of Paul's albums. The strange thing is that okay, you can go on Spotify, and I'm quite sure that both London Town and Back to the Egg are in.
Mhm.
Uh, Although in old remasters. So that means that this album are not available in full, um, with a new remastered and better remastered quality,
Mhm.
which is kind of strange to me. Uh, if we look at these two albums, and you know, London Town, uh, if you put together an archive collection, there's Mull of Kintyre in, for sure,
Mhm.
related to the period. And
Yes.
so it was Paul's most successful single ever.
Mhm.
And so I can't imagine, I can't really imagine uh, why we don't have an archive collection with Mull of Kintyre uh, being part of it. So I think it's a as a marketing tool, let me say, it's incredible. I mean, we need London Town with Mull of Kintyre in, and the book, and talking about the story of the song and stuff. It's a very important piece in Paul's career. Similarly, when we talk about Back to the Egg, there's Good Night Tonight as an
Mhm.
important single at the time. And so I mean, my idea is that these two archives are ready, but maybe they are waiting for the right moment. Um, there would be this Man on the Run documentary about the 70s uh, out soon. Who knows? Maybe they're waiting for this documentary, and London Town and Back to the Egg will come out at the same time. That's a guess,
Mhm.
but it's possible.
It is. It is. And I could certainly see that. I could certainly see completing. Myself just thinking the '80s. Like we discussed, Broad Street, Press to Play, Spies a Lot Like Us in the middle of that.
Yeah,
Concerts for Clempetia, at least the parts that Paul has and Wings have a role in, or even Off the Ground, which may not be my personal favorite, but I would love to have that next to Flaming Pie. It kind of encapsulates the '90s and so on. But yeah, just a guess on that part.
yeah. If you think that you can put together an archive for the press to play era, maybe with uh, the Live Aid night
Mhm.
in, because it was in the middle of the sessions. And although we all know what happened during during Paul's performance, but anyway, it was an historical performance. I mean, I remember I have waited uh, all day to see Paul at night, because I was very quite it was quite late
Mhm.
evening uh, at the time, because in Italy the time gap is 1 hour compared to the UK. So if
Mhm.
Paul went on stage, I don't know, maybe at 10:30, it was 11:30 in Italy. You know, so I got to wait a lot of hours for Paul, but it was an historical performance. So I think it's worth to tell the story of that. And I'm quite sure I read something about they filmed Paul during the day at the
Oh,
time.
you mean like a prior rehearsal?
No, they filmed Paul during the whole day,
Oh,
because it
okay.
was an historical thing. Probably he had a private crew with him
Mhm.
filming the whole day.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, you can imagine having something like uh, the documentary about uh, the September 11th that he did, The Love We Make, something
Mhm.
like that
Yep.
about the Live Aid. That would be very interesting to have. So I'm open to any archive edition they want to release.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That I could imagine that along with the Broad Street film, the South Bank show. Put that together as the. I mean, maybe not even a deluxe collection, but something everybody could get access to. But that
Yeah,
would be fantastic. My God,
yeah.
I would love to see it filmed just that, just following that specific day. As we said, there's so much that's unreleased. Well, I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to ask, kind of, as you alluded to earlier, kind of a little bit of the latest projects that you're working on, and of course, where people can find you and contact you. I'm going to put everything in the links below in the
Yeah.
video, but please go ahead.
Oh, there's a lot of things. Recently, I just released and published two new books that are called The Beatles After the Beatles, 1967, 1980. First part is the narrative, and the second part is the discography. So you can go through the narrative with the main events of the lives of John, Paul, Jordan, Ringo, and the music as well. And the discography goes more in depth, uh, album by album, single by single, with lots of details about musicians, recording dates, and stuff. And there's my notes as well. There's my comments on the tracks. And so I think it was a, a missing piece. There's not much about the solo Beatles out there published recently, and the narrative is red, and the discography is blue. So it's the red and blue of the solo careers. And then well, I got a book on Band on the Run out last April, which is the first installment in a new series called Milestones. So stay tuned for more uh, books on other artists as well, but by myself, on Paul, obviously. And the next one will be Music is Ideas Volume 2, which a lot of people ask me, and it will be out soon. And Volume 2 will be covering 1990 until 2012. So it will be until Kisses on the Bottom.
Mhm.
And stay tuned because we are coming close to this new release. People can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, and Facebook as well. I got a new account also on Threads. So then about a specific project of Music is Ideas,
Mhm.
there's a website which is uh, mccartneymusicisideas.it, and you can find all the news about the new series uh, here in this website.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Luca, I just want to say again, thank you so much for being on the channel. It was great to just sort of interview, maybe get a little bit idea of the process, especially for long-time fans like myself, for newer fans, folks out there. Again, look, this for me, this right here is not to sound sacrilegious, but a Bible of sorts, along with the recording sessions as well. A lot of great information you're going to find. Just you could spend a long time. You could just go along with an album, go, okay, who played on that? What was that like? What were some of the sessions like? And especially the solo years. Whereas, like you said earlier, Luca, with instead of having a book with 300 pages, 280 of the Beatles, and then only 20 pages to a career that's lasted over 50 years, a solo career with many hits, many songs, many singles that have come out. So, Luca, I just wanted to say thank you, folks. I will be linking to all the information below in the description. I will see everybody in the next episode, and just wanted to say take care, everybody. Luca, thank you so much.
Thanks, Edward, and thanks to everybody that will be seeing the episode. Thanks a lot.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody.